Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Goals Do Come True with me, Doug Bennett, the goals guy. Today, I am absolutely chuffed to have Sam Rathling on the podcast. Now, I need to tell you about Sam because it's important that you know her background. Now, my team say hold off on too much on the intro, but this, well, you'll know why I'm chuffed in a minute. Here we go. She's a global expert on all things LinkedIn, which is where I've been stalking her, to be fair. She's the author of Linked Inbound and Linked Outbound. She has consulted for some of the biggest brands in the world and helped her clients generate over £168 million. She's the co-founder of Pipeline 44 and the Social Selling Suite. She's a single mum of 3 teens and tweens, and if that isn't enough, she's also raising £100,000 for cancer research, having spent the last year in treatment for breast cancer. Now, that's a flipping intro, and I am honestly so chuffed to have Sam on board. As I say, I've been on LinkedIn for eons, watching her journey and also, what she's just been through in the last year or so. You worry about people, but she is magnificent and strong and amazing. Before I get too emotional, Sam, over to you. Fill in the gaps. Talk to us about your journey, how goals fit into your life, and over to you. Floor's yours.
I think I've always been a very goal-oriented individual, even from a very, very young age. Like, my dad was a bank manager, and he always used to say, like, you're definitely going to be an entrepreneur and you're definitely going to achieve what you set out to achieve. So if I think back to my first kind of like experience of goal setting, my very first thing was like, by the time I'm 30, I will have a business. Like, I didn't really know what in at that time, but I had like a very specific goal in mind for becoming an entrepreneur. I achieved it by 28. I set up a recruitment company back in a lot of years ago, 2005, when I moved to Ireland. Didn't know anybody in Ireland at all. But I had been working in recruitment for a few years, and I'd come across LinkedIn very early on in its kind of first probably 12 months of its launch. So I thought, I wonder if I can use LinkedIn for finding business and finding clients, as well as using it for candidates, which back then it was a very job seeker platform, and grew that recruitment company quite significantly with my dad. We ran a business together. And when I decided to go full time with LinkedIn, I set a massive goal, which was to become like the global expert on all things LinkedIn. And at the time, there was hardly any women talking about LinkedIn, and there were hardly any people talking about LinkedIn. So that was like, for me, the first thing was like dominate the UK market. Then it was like dominate Europe. And then I was like, might as well go for global domination. And my big goal within the business is to generate £1 billion in sales, not for me, but for my clients. So I track and measure as much as I can anyway, how much business the clients that I work with actually generate from the platform. So I think goals have always been a massive part of my life. And I instill it in my kids as well. They've done vision boards and goal boards since they were 3 years old.
Awesome.
So we do massive goal setting exercises at the beginning of every year. We sit down and we go through, they're 17, 14 and 11 now, but they still do their goals at the start of every year, and we still create their vision boards and all that kind of stuff. So I would say goals have been a big part of my journey, for sure.
So stumbling across just the megastar that is LinkedIn, I now find that goals is a massive part of your life. Win-win, I would say. So how do the kids get on with their goals? So they set them up, they do their vision boards. What successes have they had with clearly your support, but
we always set ones that are like very manageable and achievable for the year ahead, and I set goals in with the kids and myself in 12 categories. So we look at health goals, we look at fun goals, we look at travel goals, we look at life experiences, we look at physical goals, mental health goals. There's lots of different things that are included. They're all kind of in different categories. So I like to do what I call a goal storm with them and myself. So rather than do a brainstorm, I like doing a goal storm. And a goal storm is literally just, you take the category and you write as many things as you can think of that link to that category. So let's say health, and you'll literally keep writing until you can't think of anything else. And the rule is like, don't block anything out from, like, don't think, I couldn't write that because it's not achievable or because it's unrealistic. It's just like, write everything down you could possibly think of in one category. And then once we've done the goal storm in each category, it takes about a day, by the way, it takes a long time. Once we've done the category, we revisit each one and pick out the top 2 that are like the ones they really, really want to achieve in that category. And the top 2 from each category go on the vision board. And I always say to them, like, it doesn't matter if you don't achieve everything, because anything you don't achieve, like, can be a longer term thing. So it could be something that can move. You can take it from this year and put it into next year. So they don't have to like achieve everything that's on the vision board or on the goal list, but they will achieve it at some point. It just doesn't have to be time bound. So it might be, you know, a massive thing that's completely unrealistic for this year or the next 12 months, but it doesn't go away. It's always there on the board until it gets achieved, if that makes sense.
That makes absolute sense. And it's the word.
Goal
Yeah, it's goal storming. Goal storming. I mean, you know, that stopped me. It just stopped my brain, that did. I have to be on. What an incredible term.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
You need to trademark it. Or I will.
It's a cool thing to do. And I think, because everyone knows brainstorming, right? But I think it's super fun to do goal storming, because it is just like nothing's off the table, and just keep writing until you can't, you know.
Until you've exhausted everything in your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
In that area.
Yeah, so finance goals, so money goals, relationship goals. And that doesn't mean relationship like partners. It just means like your relationships with your friends, relationships with, you know, your family, relationships with people. Like, there's lots of different things you can put in there. So the categories are designed to affect all the aspects of their life, if that makes sense. And obviously I do it as well.
Yes, the reason that I picked up on the children, the teenagers and tweenagers, is, you know, you're starting them young, right? I'm excited for their future, for them,
Yeah.
because you've started them young. And you know, if people don't take anything else away from today, and I'm sure there's going to be stacks, right? That is the thing. Start them young. Support your children to get into goals and goal setting. So that's amazing.
And we have giving goals. That's another one. Giving goals are all about how can I contribute to charities and fundraising and volunteering. I've set a massive goal with my, you know, as you said in the intro, like as soon as I was diagnosed with cancer, my mum had breast cancer and ovarian cancer and breast cancer again. So she's the 3 times cancer survivor.
Wow.
And I was like, I need to do something big that's going to raise awareness, but also tie into my whole theme around like goals. So the £100,000 for charity for Cancer Research UK, literally, I think within a week of my diagnosis, I was like, that's the goal I'm going to set. And that's what I'm aiming to achieve, obviously. I'm at about 13,000 at the moment. I know it's going to take a lot to get there, and I've got a whole kind of team around me rallying to help me do it. But I'm working directly with Cancer Research UK now. They've seen the target that I set. That's given me, I was the race starter for Race for Life a few weeks ago, up on stage in front of 1,000 people because of the goal that I set. So when you create big goals, like it does, things happen, you know, like I think I will achieve it. I don't know when I'll achieve it, but because I'm just taking it day by day at the moment with my health situation. But I know I'll get there. It's just when I get there, but I'm definitely going to achieve it and more, probably.
That's absolutely amazing. Get the link over to us, and we'll make sure it's in the show notes. So, you know, we'll help where we can. Now, I traditionally ask people about big, hairy, audacious goals, but you've touched on 2 that you've got: 100k and then $1 billion worth of sales with your clients.
Yeah.
So
that, for me, I mean, it would be nice if I could achieve $1 billion, obviously, but you know, not quite that greedy.
Is it greed? Oh, that's an interesting one. You're not that greedy. Your needs aren't quite that big.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want to be successful, but I think everybody's vision for success for them is different. So I think I used to be very money orientated, as in most of my goals were tied to financial success. Number 1, getting older. Number 2, going through what I have just gone through in terms of coming through the other side of breast cancer treatment. I think my whole vision of what is success and what is important is completely changed. So yes, I still want to achieve my business goals and I want to achieve my sales targets, but it's not the most important thing anymore, because I think you can be rich in life, not just rich in money, if that makes sense.
No, that makes absolute sense. I mean, I had a near-death motorcycle accident last year, and it's like, do you know what?
It changes you when you look in the eye, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You're lying there on the motorway, looking up at the sky, thinking, you flipping lucky bastard. The word was stronger, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
In that regard, it does change the structure of things. And I love the fact that you've got lots of different areas that you concentrate and that your kids concentrate on the goals arena, because it makes it more rounded in that regard. It makes for a rounded life, and it makes for a more balanced lifestyle wheel. I have a little thing that I can send out to people where we can look at the different areas of our life and see where the imbalances are. And I think it's very important to try and get that wheel as round as possible. It tends to have breaks in it and almost like punctures in places, but it's getting it rounded off.
Yeah, and I think it changes, doesn't it, over time. Like, I'm quite good at tracking things like that, and depending on what's going on, like I don't think you'll ever have the perfect balance of like everything in check, but there'll always be a couple of areas that are like more where you feel like, oh yeah, I'm doing really well in that at the moment, but then there'll always be others that are like not quite where they need to be. But I think it's quite challenging to try and like get the perfect wheel. I don't think anyone has the perfect wheel.
No.
But you've always got that sacrifice of one thing against the other. So I know if I'm doing better in business, it's usually to the detriment of me spending less time on myself, for example, and vice versa. I'm trying to get that balance of, I don't think there is anything as such as the perfect balance, but I think being aware of it at least and measuring it, I think the measurement piece is key, that a lot of people aren't measuring. Like, how am I doing with my health? How am I doing with my finances? How am I doing with my relationships? How am I doing with my, giving back? Like, they're not necessarily like looking at it every month and assessing how they're doing. So, and I always say what gets measured gets done. So I think the fact that I do track things very analytically every month on business, but also I do look at all aspects of how I'm working in my life in general. So I think it's great that you've got that tool for people. So yeah, if you don't have it, ask Doug for it.
Bless you. So I asked you to come on the podcast because, as I say, I've been stalking you on LinkedIn and you accepted, which I'm chuffed about. Is there a message that you had in mind when you thought, I will accept that, I'll come on? Is there something that you want to tell the world, share with the world?
I mean, I don't mind accepting. It doesn't matter who it is for me. Like, because you never know who's listening to a podcast like this. And that's the same for anything. When you get an opportunity in business or in life, I always think, well, say yes, because you never know where it's going to lead to. So I remember being invited onto a podcast from someone I didn't really know. She'd read my book. She'd read LinkedIn Inbound, and she was a raving fan. And she was like, I don't have an audience. Like, I'm starting this podcast, but you'd be like one of the first people on. Like, will you? And she was really worried about asking me. And I was like, of course I'll do it. And she's like, but I don't have an audience. I said, but I don't care about that. Like, I want to help you because I'm very much about helping others. And she today has one of like the top 1% podcast. She's on episode 500 and something. And her podcast has gone crazy. And my episode, the very first one when she had no audience, is one of, I think it's in the top 5 of her 500 episodes. And it led me to being invited on someone else's podcast in Northern Ireland off the back of it. And that person had a listener that booked me for a £24,000 consultancy and training piece of business. So if I hadn't have said yes to going on her podcast when she had no audience, I wouldn't have had the listener in Northern Ireland that then brought me over to do some work with tourism in Northern Ireland. So I just think it's crazy that people will be like, oh no, I'm not going on that because like, oh, you don't have this, or because you're not. I think it's mad. Like, you never know who's listening, and I don't know who's going to listen to this either, right? So I think it's not for me about looking at it and going, oh, would I do that one or not? Like, I will always, if someone steps forward and asks me to do it, I'll generally say yes, because I know it. You never know what's going to happen off the back of it. And I think that's a philosophy everyone should apply if they want to reach their goals.
That's perfect. And to be fair, I'm like 166 episodes in or something like that. And, the first 2 or 3 are the most listened to because people start at the beginning, So naturally, if you think the podcast has got legs and the subject, because that is the other thing, unfortunately, it's like people get to about 7 episodes and then they give up on the creative side of things. So, but I would say if you gel or, connect with the message yourself, then, certainly take these opportunities. And as you say, you just don't know where they're going to lead. And that's cool. Let's see if we can get, another 24K from anybody.
Well, I
And
didn't say yes for that reason. But
no, I'm teasing you.
I do think the more that you say yes to, I mean, obviously it's important to say no to the wrong things as well. But for me, especially if someone's listening to this and they, I mean, I don't know what kind of audience you have. I'm sure it's quite mixed in terms of, you know, types of businesses, professionals, people that, I don't know what your audience is, but if someone's out there and they're like, they've just started a business and they're in their first 12 or 24 months, I always say to people, why you don't have an audience, like go borrow other people's. When I first started out, when I was doing LinkedIn, when nobody knew who I was, I had no personal brand, I had no credibility. I was like, whose audience can I borrow whilst I'm building my own? So I targeted a few podcasts, YouTube people, events. I was like, I just need to get in front of people and make as much noise about my brand as possible whilst I'm building up my own following and my own audience. And I think that's really important, you know, doing things like this, being on other people's podcasts. I didn't have a podcast at the time and I wasn't inclined to do one yet. It just wasn't on my radar. I have one now, but at the time I was like, it's not something I think I can commit to, so I'm just going to go and I set a goal to be on 4 podcasts every single month, and I'm back to doing that again now. So I'm doing podcast interviews after, you know, having been out for the last kind of 10 months or so. So I'm kind of back on the almost relaunching my brand off the back of having been out for 10 months, not out completely, but, you know, less.
Yeah, taking it easy.
Podcasts, I'm like, my goal is to be on 4 podcasts every month. My goal is to be at two speaking events every month. So I have mini goals for everything. Like goals I hadn't realised was such a big thing for me, but it is silly.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it's like there's a couple of things there that I want to pick up on in so much as you were specific about what it is that you want to achieve. You want to be on 4 podcasts a month, right? Which is 1 a week, that's a realistic goal in that regard. So it's serendipitous that I asked you at this time because you were up for it.
I literally had just set, and that's the thing, isn't it? When you set intention, I had just literally written my new kind of targets and goals out. And then you literally messaged me on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, there's one.
How spooky. I'm just going all goosebumply with that one because I think
it is so true. Like if you don't set goals, you don't write stuff down, you don't set a vision for what you want to achieve, it's very hard to make it happen. So if you're just like bumbling along in life and you don't have even like the smallest of goals, how are you ever going to achieve anything if you don't actually set the intention that that's what you're going to do? And it's amazing when you actually do write stuff down or do a vision board or whatever it might be, that the things actually do manifest themselves to happen. And I know everybody believes in all of that kind of stuff, but I do believe quite heavily in the whole manifestation and writing things down and seeing them and believing they're going to happen. Like I genuinely think that's been a big part of how I've got to where I am. So
I would say I'm in agreement. It was like a few years back, it was like, oh goodness gracious, really? But then didn't you start looking into it a little bit and you start opening up the opportunities and the thought processes, and then so many serendipitous things happen and it's like, really?
The coolest one I had, which is a bit woo-woo, but I'm going to share it with you because it's...
Please do.
Butterflies are a big thing for me, right? As you can see behind me, if you're watching a recording of this or if it's on video. So butterflies have always been like a big part of my life. And I did a massive event right before lockdown. I was on stage in front of 600 people and I told my story through the eyes of transformation, and I called it the butterfly effect. A few people came up to me afterwards and showed me all their like butterfly tattoos, and I've never had a tattoo before, but my grandparents at the time, one had already passed away and my grandfather was literally on his deathbed when I was on that stage, and as soon as he passed, I found a butterfly in my office, which was really odd because it was not the time of year when butterflies were around, and it was just a whole thing around butterflies. So I put on my vision board that January, the following January, like I was going to get a tattoo of 2 butterflies to represent my grandparents. I'd forgotten about it, and it was about a year and a half later. I was in Portugal. My daughter said to me, Mum, can I get my belly button pierced? So I agreed to it, and we went to a shop to get it done, and it was a tattoo parlour. And I was like, oh, maybe I could get my tattoo done. And I asked him, and he said, yeah, I've got an appointment. And I was like, I can't remember like the design, but I said, I'll kind of describe it to you. And he said, and I showed him something on my phone, and he said, I don't really like that. Do you mind if I put my own twist on it? And he tattooed my arm. It's about, I don't know if you can't see it through here, but it's kind of from here to here. And I got back from the holiday and my vision board is up in my kitchen, and the picture I had cut out and put on my vision board of the butterfly design, he had literally tattooed the exact design on my arm.
Oh,
Literally, like the twist, the turn, everything, all the artistic stuff he had done was exactly what was on my vision board. I was like, whoa, that's not explainable. Crazy.
yeah.
Even the two butterflies being in exactly two different positions, one with their wings open, one closed, top and bottom, like exactly the same design he literally put on my arm.
Have you got the photo of the vision board?
I think it might even be up there.
Yeah. No, you don't. I'm just because
it's up on my thing up there, but I have got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
Awesome.
on my Facebook, I've got a picture of the two side by side, so my tattoo and the vision board.
Awesome.
I'll send it to you.
Definitely. Because I've been doing this for a little while, and just every now and again you go, there's just a little, when you do something on a regular basis, right? They say a plumber's tap often drips, right? You've just given me something as a little like boost lift thing in my thought processes, so I appreciate that and thank you for that, because I'm going through a little transition-y phase in my life, and it's been a little bit tougher, to be fair, over the last year. Nowhere near as tough as your year, but
do you know what? I'm going to find it now.
Well, I'm just starting that. Can you believe I got to 150 episodes, and I had every single video, because videoed them, and they were all done on Zoom or whatever, and it's like, I had all the videos, and it's like, really, Doug? It's crazy how much, content there is. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
There you go.
No, that's crazy.
And the yellow, and that's my arm with the...
Yeah.
Like, even to the twisty things and everything, like literally. Crazy.
Yes. No, that's crazy. So anybody listening, I've seen a picture, and I'm going to hunt it down on Facebook.
Yeah, on my face. You can stalk me on Facebook now.
Well, I probably have already anyway. If you let me, you might not let me be a friend
I will,
now.
Of course, yeah. I don't use that much for business, but I got hacked, and I lost 5,000 friends on Facebook, and I had to start all over again. So I was like,
oh crikey!
There was something you asked me earlier that I thought I'd bring up because it's quite topical at the moment. So obviously the Olympics are on at the moment. We're in the middle of the Olympics, and you asked me what impact goal setting had had on the kids. My daughter Maya is actually a sprinter, and she runs the 100 meters and 200 meters, and she has already set her goal for being in the Olympics. So. She was 14 when she set that goal. She's 15 now, but she's already in the UK rankings, and she's training 4 times a week, and she's super focused on getting to the Olympics and being in Team GB. So that's a big thing for her. But obviously, I think that has come from me being, and I'm not a pushy mom or anything. She genuinely set that goal herself. I am a track mom though. I'm screaming at the side of the track every single time she's in a competition. But all the parents she's seeing on the Olympics, screaming their heads off for their kids. So I am that mum, but she has set that goal herself, and she's like, I'm going to be at the Olympics 2032. She set the goal for.
Wow! Look, even knowing where it's going to be, and that's research, and there's going to be no doubt she's going to be there.
Yeah, so
right.
The only reason I knew it was there is because I shared it with my sisters, and my sisters are in New Zealand and Australia, and she was like, it's in Brisbane in 2032. She's like, well, literally, you could just get on a flight and be there in no time.
No, see again, all these little weavy bits and pieces,
weird things. I'm like, that would be handy, because then we go.
Yeah, as a support, it'll be a business deductive, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
We've got to do that. Where as entrepreneurs, we've got to take every opportunity to.
I'm already working on her brand deals. All that. She's only 15, obviously. We're really right. We need to get your Instagram going. We need to get your following up. We need to get your brand deals in place.
Awesome. That is awesome. That's
why I spend a lot of my time doing outside of work is being at the track. And even all through my breast cancer journey, which started in October last year, she hasn't missed a single training session. She's been at every competition. She's brought her PBs down massively, and she's doing amazing. So I'm very proud of her. And my kids both shaved their hair off when I did mine, and they were 14 and 11 when they did that, my girls. So to be able to do that at age 14 and age 11 with all the social pressures that they're under, it was a really nice, special moment for me.
Well, I'm going to say you must be, it's obvious, immensely proud of them all.
Yeah, they're awesome.
They're awesome. Do you want to shout out the others?
Oh, well, I've got Oscar, Maya and Liliana, so I have to shout out all 3 of them, obviously.
Yes.
Oscar's a bit old. He's going to be 18 this year. I can't believe that. But again, he's very entrepreneurial. He's done his own thing all the way through. He's had a power washing business. He's very goal oriented, wasn't ever one. I've got 2 kids that are ADHD. I have ADHD as well, and their brains just work, our brains just work totally differently. And I think goal setting it actually massively helps, I think, when you're slightly neurodiverse.
Yeah.
That I don't know if it's a common I don't know, you might know. You've interviewed lots of people around goals, but I think that it just helps to kind of keep you focused.
Yeah, you've got to pull yourself back in that regard.
Yeah.
Well, if Oscar's an entrepreneur, what I'm going to do is afterwards I'll take your address, I'll send him a signed copy of my book, Think Simple, Win Big, all right? And then
Amazing.
he can have a read. I need Sam Rathling goal-setting nugget, something that we haven't touched on already.
We've done quite a lot, to be fair.
And I know. So you're going to have to dig deep on this. You're going to have to dig deep, but it's something the world needs to know about goals and goal setting, according to Sam Rathling.
Well, first off, I think number 1, you've got to have goals if you want to get anywhere in life. So having them in the first place. Secondly, making sure that they are true to who you are. Like, I know the whole realistic thing and everything, everyone talks about that, but I think they need to align with your core values. So your goals need to align with who you are as a person and who you want to become. Because quite an important point, I guess, around goals is that one of the categories that I encourage people to set goals around is like, who do you need to become in order to achieve all of the goals that you've written down? Because I think some people need to shift who they are, not who they are from a personality perspective, but how they behave and how they act and how they show up is going to massively affect whether or not they actually achieve those goals. So one of the goal setting or goal storming areas that I encourage people to write down if they are going to achieve everything they've put on their goal list is actually, who do you need to become? And that might be words, it might be 5 different words, it might be that I need to become unstoppable, I need to have self-belief, I need to have this. So there's certain things I need to act in a certain way or behave in a certain way in order to be, like, for example, mine is to be kind to myself. That's a goal that I have, is to be kind to myself. And there are actions and things linked to being kind to myself. But that's one thing that if I'm not kind to myself, I'm not going to be able to achieve certain goals that I've set, for example. So I think linking your goals to who you are and your core values and looking at what you need to become is really important.
There you go. That wasn't too hard, was it? It was in there. We just needed to dig it out.
Just need to get it out, exactly.
So that's cool. That's very, very cool. Anything else that you want to share?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about? We can talk about anything.
We can. We can indeed.
Maybe we could talk about, maybe it would be helpful, obviously, because I have the LinkedIn knowledge, to look at like what my goals are and what I would recommend people have in place if they are using a platform like LinkedIn. Because I think, especially if someone's got business goals or they've got targets for themselves in business and they're not leveraging a platform like LinkedIn, I think that is a missed opportunity. So maybe that would be something I could share.
Perfect.
So if I were to look at the goals that I set myself from LinkedIn, and I actually did a post on this yesterday, it was my non-negotiables through my breast cancer journey, because although I've been working at about 40% capacity, I still had my non-negotiable goals that I was going to do on the platform regardless of whether I was feeling well or not. So the first thing is that I would always be building my network, so adding new connections who are in my target market, regardless of, there's no excuse for not doing that, whether it's 5 people a day, 10 people a day, 20 people a day, or 25 people a day. Adding new people into your network who fit your target market is a non-negotiable goal that everyone should have on the platform. At the moment, we're in August 2024. The current maximum per week is around 150 to 200 invites per week. So if you're here listening thinking I've got some goals in my business and I need to achieve them and I need new clients, that's one thing that is a goal that you should set for yourself. Like, how many connections per day are you going to invite, based on the fact that about 50% will accept. So if you want 100 new connections a week, you need to invite 200. If you want 50 new connections a week, invite 100. If you're not getting a 50% acceptance rate, then there's something wrong with your profile, or you're not connecting in the right way. There'll be something going on that's like stopping people. But on average, it should be about 50%. So build your network. The second thing is posting content. So minimum 3 times a week. That should be the goal you should be setting yourself for posting content onto the newsfeed. You don't have to post every single day. Obviously, the more you post, the more noise you create, etc., and the bigger following you'll get. But as an absolute minimum, like 3 posts a week. I would say at least one kind of more personal focused post, whether it be about goals, whether it be about your journey, whether it be about anything outside of work. Personal posts will always get more traction than more business focused ones, but the more vulnerable and authentic you can be, the better. And then The next one would be around engagement. So people always complain to me that they're not getting enough engagement on their posts, or they're not getting enough impressions, or they're not getting enough reach, etc. And then I ask them the question, well, how much are you doing that for others? So how much engagement are you giving to other people? And they're like, well, I don't do a lot of that. Well, if you're not giving other people support and helping other people's posts and showing up on other people's content, then don't expect it to come back to you. So as an absolute minimum, comment on at least 5 to 10 posts a day if you can. It doesn't take long, but something insightful, not just great post or something boring. Like add value on content, and try and do it on the posts of your target market. So I will go and post on or comment on a sales director's post or a chief revenue officer's post, because they're the types of people that will book me to come and work with their sales team. So rather than just commenting on my mates, posts, or people that I network with or know in person, of course I'll still do that, but I would be very intentional with which posts I'm engaging with. So commenting on the posts of your target market, because that gets you visible with the author of the post, and it also gets you visible with everyone else that has liked and commented that post already, which is typically people like them. So that's another one. The other things I would be doing from a goals perspective, those are just 3 basic things, like content, posting and engaging, and connecting with people. But most of the time people think that's enough to get business from the platform, and it's not. The key thing to winning business on LinkedIn is having some kind of conversion mechanism in place, where you're moving people off the platform, out of the platform, to actually move them into potentially becoming a client. And that's the bit that most people are missing. They don't have a process to go from end to end to take someone from we're connected on LinkedIn to actually them becoming a customer. So for us, that might be, we do a lot of free events. So I give lots and lots of value away. I have my books, which obviously give a lot of free content to people. But my goal from LinkedIn is to move people onto my email list. And then if they're on my email list, then they get invited to my free events. And my free events turn them into customers, if that makes sense. So my goal from a free event is to have a few people go, actually, that was really useful. I'm going to book a call with Sam. And then my calls turn into clients. So we did an event yesterday. Was it yesterday? Tuesday. Can't remember when it was. Might have been yesterday or Tuesday. Chris, my business partner, did an event. We had 200 people registered for the event on Zoom. We had 150 people show up and 20 people booked a call, and 85% of them will become customers. Like, that's a process, but most people don't have a process that turns their activity on the platform into actually getting business and winning clients. So we have a very specific goal of how many emails we want to collect every single month, and that's 500. So between me and the team, if we hit 500 new emails on our list every month directly from traffic on LinkedIn, we know we'll secure X number of customers, and it's like clockwork, and it without fail. Like, we know all the numbers, we know all the tracking and everything, but most people don't have that in place. Now, that's just one way to get business on LinkedIn. There's another 7, but that's an example of how goals can tie into the activity. So you've got to have activity goals, and you've got to have outcome goals as well. So it's not just about going, I want 20 new clients every month, or 10 new clients, or 5 new clients. It's about working that back and working out what activity do I need to do to drive that outcome.
That was immense. Now, I know that you've shared with us the only term for it in the whole wide world is a lead magnet, everybody, and it's 44 prospecting tips.
That's it.
And it's on the website socialselling.co.uk/44 prospecting tips. Couldn't be any easier. Now, we're going to make sure that it's obviously in the show notes. Anybody listening to the podcast, if you want 44 prospecting tips, you need to go to socialselling.co.uk/44 prospecting tips. Does that help?
Yeah, well, hopefully that will help people.
That'll help people. And yes, what will happen is you'll form one of the 500 email addresses that
Exactly.
Sam wants to add to her list.
Totally blatantly, that's what's going to happen.
That is what's going to happen, folks. And every week I say this. It's like, that is what... And then it's a case of, right, okay, you can have a little snifter and there's a little stalk on the content, see if it gels with you, see if it's something that you need to do in your life to improve. And if you do, then you've got the right person, the right team to take you forward in that regard. And it's blatant, because you need to understand that that's what's happening, All right.
And if you want to unsubscribe, I'm also all right with that too.
Yeah, because Sam has the statistic for the number of the net of the 500 that happens. She knows the 500 target means that she will get X amount of people on the list on into the future. And it's...
Yeah, and if you don't have one of those, by the way, like, get one, because that's a big part of, and regardless of whether you're on LinkedIn or not, like, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, which I think is in the show notes as well, though I've got multiple things that people can access, like the 44 prospecting tips, the 100 content ideas, free events, like there's lots of things that people can get lots of value from without paying me a penny, by the way. But, you know, ultimately some people do go, actually, I don't think I can do this on my own, and they will become clients, and that's okay. But that I'm big into, like, give as much value for free as possible, because if people go, wow, if that's her free stuff, like, imagine what would happen if I actually paid her money. So
exactly, so
right. Have a lead magnet and you're listening to this going, well, I don't have that, like, that's job number one. Like, get something, but make sure it's super valuable to your target audience. So figure out who your target audience is and then think what would be really helpful to them, because if it's not helpful to them, no one's going to download it. You know, I only launched that a week ago, and it's had 70 downloads, and I've had 7 meetings booked off the back of it. And then that's without anyone being invited to an event yet. And 6 of the 7 sales meetings have turned into customers. So the point here is, for every 10 downloads of that, I pick up a new client, basically.
And it's the maths.
It is the maths, though, but it's all numbers, and that's, I think when it comes to goals, it's a very number driven thing, right? I think if you've got goals, even if you said, I want to achieve X amount of money, or I want to go on holiday to here and it's going to cost X, whatever it is, you've got to link it back to what activity do I need to do to actually achieve that. And then there are numbers involved at all steps of that process. Whether you're in the gym and trying to achieve a target, or whether you're, you know, whatever it is, there's always numbers linked to all of that, and the data tells you everything. And if you're not hitting goals, then look at the data, because the data will tell you where you're missing.
Yeah, you just got to collect the data in the first instance.
And that's what most people don't do. They don't have the data. So you say to people, I'm sure you have these conversations all the time with people about if they're not achieving their goals. It's like, well, let's look at the numbers. And then most of the time people can't tell you the numbers. Most people can't tell you how many leads they need in order to get X amount of meetings, to get X amount of clients, because they don't know the conversion rates. They don't know how many leads are coming in the first place. Like, they're not tracking it. So I think the data is really important. And I've never really been a data and a process person, but I am more recently now. But it's not something that I, as an entrepreneur, I think we like to do, especially, you know, especially entrepreneurs that are more people oriented and less number oriented. But it's so important that you know your numbers.
Okay, so this is just selfish for me now. On LinkedIn, can you have multiple personas as such, or should you be? It's like, because I'm the goals guy, right? And that's a registered trademark, and I've got that on the back of a couple of books and the podcasting and stuff like that. But I have a financial services business where I want to attract clients in to show them when work is optional. In that regard, I've got the Director of Financial Freedom trademarked, because that's what I want to do. I want to direct people to financial freedom. Does that come too confusing if that's within your LinkedIn profile? You know, should you narrow it down a little bit, or can you be multifaceted?
I think you can be multifaceted, but you have to do it in a clever way. So those two things that you've said on paper sound like they're different things, but actually they're kind of the same thing, ultimately, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because being the goals guy and knowing that goals help, like, ultimately, if you have the right goals in place and you're teaching people that, they can achieve
financial freedom
and get to the point where they know. So the best thing that you said there is that you've got a very specific kind of niche, like you've got a specific target market for people that, you know, so you've got a financial services business, but at the same time it's all interlinked. So I don't think you need to treat it as two separate personas as such. I think you can do all of it in the same, because it's hard to do that. I think there can be a running theme through your content that is linked to ultimately all about goals and all about achieving, you know, financial success. Doesn't need to define, am I currently being the goals guy, or am I currently being the person that's got a financial services business? I think the two, you need to see the two as the same thing. And your profile can have multiple, in the work experience section, can have multiple kind of hats that you wear. So you can have a work experience section dedicated to being the goals guy. You can have a work experience section dedicated to the financial services business. Your about section, though, needs to be about, for me, needs to be targeted at whatever you are. So let's say you're going after a particular type of target audience.
Yeah.
An example of who you might be targeting?
It would be anybody over probably 55 that's got some assets and is seriously dogged off with their career.
So content needs to speak to those people, but so does your profile. If you look at your LinkedIn profile right now, let's say I'm a 55-year-old man and I am annoyed with my career. I'm thinking about, like, I just want to retire, but I don't know how what I need to do to get there, or I just want to be, financially free. All of those things, if I were to look at your LinkedIn profile and look at your content over the last 2 months, does it speak to that person?
Right.
Whether you're being the guy or whether you're being... So if it doesn't, that's an immediate mislink, right? So your LinkedIn profile, 80% of it should be talking to that ideal client, like the about section, the featured section. I get that you've got, the books and lead magnets and all that kind of stuff. They can all be on your profile, but ultimately your LinkedIn profile, and this is for anyone listening, needs to be really, really speaking to your ideal client. It needs to really be tapping into the pain points that they've got and the problems that you can solve for them. And it needs to be having some kind of call to action that moves people from, I've visited your profile, to actually, where am I going next? So for you, that might be a financial review. It might be I don't know what your next step in the sales process is, but clearly you need to speak to people in order to move them through to the next stage of becoming a customer. So does your LinkedIn profile easily take people from we're connected, or I'm looking at your profile, to actually what is the next step? Whether that's I do free strategy calls on my profile, but it's on my featured section, it's in my about section. Like, it's very clear to see that you can book a call with me and spend 30 minutes with no charge talking about your LinkedIn strategy. But on that call, at the end of it, obviously I'm going to help that person on that call. But at the end of it, like, they have an option to become part of our membership or whatever it might be. But it's not a sales meeting. It's I'm going to help you and showcase my expertise. And off the back of that, if you decide that you want more of it, then this is the options for you. Is it easy for people to do that from your profile, for example? And is it speaking directly to that exact type of individual? And then look at your content and think, is that speaking to that 55-year-old male or woman, whatever it is, female or male? That's like, because if it isn't, then there's an immediate, like, it's not connecting with your audience.
Okay. It definitely does. It looks like there's a lot of work involved.
It can be both. Like, I wear multiple hats. I've got multiple target audiences, kind of the same thing, but not necessarily. So I do a lot of work in corporates where I'll go and train, big sales teams on Sales Navigator, and it's a very high ticket, high value product. But then I also have a product offering that can help somebody that's only been in business for 12 months or less, which starts at 50 quid a month. So I've got 5-figure deals going on, and down here I've got a 50 quid a month product that's accessible for everybody. So it's like, but I have to play both of those hats.
Yeah.
But there is a theme going through both, right? Which is that I'm the LinkedIn girl. So in the same way that you're the goals guy, like I'm the LinkedIn queen, you're the goals guy, right? So you're the goals guy, but you're the goals guy who helps multiple, there's multiple types of people you can help, type thing.
A little bit of work to be done. I wonder who I could come to have a chat about.
I wonder.
I wonder.
Hopefully that's helpful. I think, and lots of people ask me that question, so it's good that you asked it. I know you said it from a selfish perspective, but there will be lots of people listening and like, actually, that was really useful for me as well, because there's usually a mismatch. People are on LinkedIn, they're investing time there, and it's just not turning into results for them, and that's a big part of the reason. I did a workshop yesterday with a client in Derbyshire, and I was in there with all their management team, their leadership team, and I was like, before we even talk about like going to get clients, like, let's go fix this bit first. You don't have any idea who you're targeting, and if you do, the stuff you're doing is not speaking to them. So we spent an hour and a half just on their LinkedIn profiles yesterday, because there's no point in them going out to connect with new people if their profile isn't really speaking to that audience. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the first part of the process, really, is to get your profile sorted.
Well, that's cool. This has been jam-packed with stuff. Anybody would think, me asking a question and being selfish, anybody would think that I maybe done this before.
You might think that.
And I think yes, you've highlighted that we've jam-packed an awful lot in that period of time. So, Sam, just anything else you want to share very quickly before we sign off? because it's been an absolute blast.
If you've enjoyed listening to this, obviously reach out to me on LinkedIn. Let me know that you heard about me on the Goals Guy podcast, because I like to know where people have come from. And if you have a question based on anything I've shared, I'm more than happy to help. So just drop me an inbox.
Perfect. Sam, thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, albeit virtually, having stalked you for I don't know how long. And that is a bit creepy. And I'm sorry about that.
No problem, Doug. Thanks for having me on the podcast, and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.